The past is set to return to the present this Australia Day in the city of Sydney, with a fleet of vintage buses returning to service on George Street. The buses from the Sydney Bus Museum will return to the roads to ferry passengers on a loop around the CBD from Bridge Street to Central Station. The 15-strong fleet is made up of double-deckers from the 30s right through to the 70s, with dozens of volunteers giving up their time to drive them.
We're about 60 volunteers. We've got to have relief staff, and we run a little sales stand. We sell souvenirs and model buses and all that sort of stuff.
An Australia Day tradition in Sydney, the vintage bus service has been running on the public holiday in some form or another for the past 25 years. And now, in conjunction with the Australia Day Council and the City of Sydney, it's now an official part of the programme of events. And this year's service marks a new beginning for the vehicles and the many volunteers who run the Sydney Bus Museum. After being closed for 5 years, the museum is preparing to reopen at its new home in Leichhardt this year. When this Leyland double-decker was last in service, a trip across the city would have cost just 10 cents. However, this Australia Day, you and your family can enjoy the nostalgic commute for a generous donation, with all the proceeds going to the Sydney Bus Museum.
It's a great thing for families. How often do you get a chance to ride on a 60-year-old double-decker bus? It's a very interesting, happy sort of a day.
Passengers can hop on board at stops on Bridge Street near George Street and the Queen Victoria Building, as well as Haymarket and Central Station, with the service running between 10:30 and 5. At the Sydney Bus Museum in Leichhardt, Helen Mulroy, Sky News. The second day of Sydney's once-in-a-decade weather event, and the city woke to chaos. Cyclone-strength winds and flooding rain overnight left thousands of homes without power. With trees and power lines down across the city, authorities have been inundated with calls for help. The SES alone has received 4,500 calls, whilst 000 has received 3,000.
Wires down, trees down, gas leaks, building collapses. It's just phenomenal. Yeah, it's a massive call rate.
Roofs were ripped off and cars became collateral damage. The wall of this North Narrabeen boat dealership crumbled, crushing 4 parked cars. And Sydney's commuters felt nature's full force. Roads were blocked, traffic signals were out and public transport was delayed. A down power line closed the Princes Highway at Sydenham, causing major delays for the west.
People are going to have to be patient. They're just going to have to be patient. We've got 250 traffic lights currently out.
And for those who tried to turn from the road to the rails, there was little reprieve. St James Station in the CBD was saturated and all train lines north of the city experienced delays. For passengers on the Manly Ferry, the world's best commute was drowned out in the wash. All ferry services were cancelled by 10 a.m. And the outlook for the afternoon is set to get no better.
The most dangerous place this afternoon, later this afternoon, will be on the roads. So again, we encourage essential driving only.
The wild weather is expected to hang around until Thursday. Helen Mulroy, Sky News. It was the little-known Woolly War effort on the home front, following the outbreak of the First World War, right through the Second World War. In an effort to do their part, the women and children of Australia picked up their knitting needles to help our diggers. What started out as an informal pastime soon became a coordinated nationwide effort, knitting socks for our Anzac soldiers.
The socks were very important for the troops on the front line. They were a practical necessity which prevented trench foot. Trench foot was a major concern because it actually impeded the ability of the soldiers to fight.
During the First World War, over 1 million pairs of socks were sent, with the number tripling during the Second World War when over 3 million were shipped.
When the Second World War started in 1939, I was 8 years old, and we were all given khaki wool to knit, and we were all knitting for the soldiers.
At an estimated 10 hours of work per pair, it was a staggering effort, and one that proved vital to our troops.
The recommendation was that they were meant to change their socks daily. The people on the home front knitting the socks meant that there was a fresh supply continually.
Yet more than just a crucial item in our diggers' kit bags, the home comforts provided so much more.
The socks were actually a big morale booster. They often included a little message from the knitter as well. Would have been sort of a memento of home.
This year, as a tribute to the Anzac Centenary, the City of Sydney launched the Socks for the Centenary campaign, encouraging people to knit a pair of socks using the original Red Cross pattern and reflect on the service and sacrifice of our diggers. Helen McGrath and Joanna Wobith were just 2 of the dozens of volunteers who felt compelled to get involved.
It was something you could contribute to the centenary. Anzac Day is so important to all of us. I had an uncle who was in the trenches in France, and in World War II, many members of my family were fighting, and everybody else's family were fighting.
My grandfather was in the First World War. He was a baker. It made you think about what happened in these wars, think about all those young men who didn't come back, and hope that they had a little bit of comfort and warmth on their feet.
The socks are currently on display at Sydney's Surrey Hills Library, and a testament to the true Anzac spirit of enterprise and mateship. They will be donated to the homeless charity, the Wayside Chapel. So if you're looking for a slightly different way to honour our Anzacs this centenary, why not cast off? The original 1914 Red Cross knitting patterns can be downloaded online, and the Surrey Hills Library is accepting donations until the end of April. Helen Mulroy, Sky News. It was on this footpath on Victoria Road in Rozelle where a Sunday stroll turned fatal. A 22-year-old P-plate driver has been charged and will appear in court today after the ute he was driving allegedly mounted the curb here in Sydney's inner west, striking a woman and a man. The pair were walking along the pavement when they were hit by the out-of-control Holden Commodore. The woman, a 47-year-old, was killed instantly, whilst the second victim, a 49-year-old man, sustained life-threatening injuries. He remains in a critical condition at the Royal Prince Alfred Hospital. It's not yet known what caused the crash, but police are investigating reports the driver, who initially attempted to flee the scene before being detained by witnesses, may not have been fit to drive.
He was obviously in really bad shock, but then he didn't look like he was totally with it either.
He's currently in our custody and he's had the blood and alcohol as a mandatory test.
He remains in police custody after being denied bail and will appear at Newtown Local Court this morning. Helen Mulroy, Sky News, Sydney.